So I like to say that President Trump is a very complicated person in some ways and very simple in others. And I'm just amazed at how often he does things that does not take a genius or Don Jr. to anticipate what he's going to do. And yet I spent my day, really my morning, with people, particularly people in the financial world, saying, "Oh my goodness, this war is going to go on forever. They've miscalculated on energy. Gas is going to go to $12 a gallon, and the president's got no plan to deal with this. And the Iranians have all these drones, and it's just all a disaster." And I kept saying, the war will probably be over within 10 days because the president doesn't need regime change. I keep saying it, as Netflix said about Warner Brothers, it's a nice to have, not must have. And Bibi will say, no, 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 we have to keep going. And the president and Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff will say, no, Bibi, we're actually done. Because unlike other presidents, we don't let you walk all over us. And that's probably what's going to happen. And uh, for those of you not following the news, this is two-way tonight, by the way, March 9th. The president did a quick interview with a correspondent from CBS News. And what happened before that? Before that, everybody was all up in arms about the price of gas going up and the markets going down. And the president just said a few things to CBS News. And what happened after the president spoke? This was late this afternoon. The president spoke to CBS News, and the reporter posted some tweets. The Dow Jones Industrial Average was down nearly 900 points before the president said what he said, which was basically, this is going to be a quick war. Everything's gone so well. After he spoke, went from 900 down to net up 240 points for the day, right? So that's a 1,300 point swing. Even in the market as big as it is, that's not nothing. Crude was up, crude oil up 100, over $100 per barrel. Fell back down to $81 after the president spoke, and I bet it will fall more. Before the war started, it was 68, so barely up at all. Even though the war continues, even though the Straits of Hormuz continue to not be filled with ships. Here's the president moments ago, echoing the remarks he made to CBS News at the Doral Club in Miami, where he's addressing, as we speak, House Republicans on their strategic meeting. Here's the president.
And our country is doing really well. I mean, at a level that nobody thought. We took a little excursion because we felt we had to do that to get rid of some evil. And I think you'll see it's going to be a short-term excursion. How good is our military, right?
Short-term excursion. Short-term excursion. Again, that echoed what he said to CBS. Here it is, number 4, please. This is the president's tweet from this afternoon to CBS News correspondent. In a phone interview, President Trump told me the war could be over soon. Quote, I think the war is very complete, pretty much. They have no Navy, no communications. They've got no Air Force. He added that the U.S. is very far ahead of his initial 4 to 5 week estimated time frame. And here he is, number 6, going on, talking about the Strait of Hormuz. As for the Strait of Hormuz, Trump noted that the ships are moving through now, but he is, quote, thinking about taking it over. Trump warned Iran, quote, they've shot everything they have to shoot, and they better not try anything cute or it's going to be the end of that country. Again, people take the president both literally and seriously, often when they should do neither or only one and only that one a little bit. He says all sorts of things about Iran. He said all sorts of things about don't pick a leader without my permission. He says we need regime change. He says all sorts of things. Ladies and gentlemen, these are just words. I've tried to explain this so many times. And again, I don't know the guy that well. I've known him a little bit for about 15 years. I don't know him that well, but he is an open book on these things. He's an open book. People say taco. Trump always chickens out. No, Trump always plays for maximum leverage, gets what he can, and then adjusts. And he doesn't, a normal president would have trouble saying one day, this is going to be a 6-week war, or we need the Iranian people to rise up. And then another day saying something different. He has no trouble with it. And if all that happens, if he stopped it today, okay, if he stopped it today, and the level of destruction, the level of setback to Iran, loss of 7 American lives, tragic, truly tragic. The loss of some Israeli lives, tragic. Other people around the world, property damage, civilians killed in Iran, all tragic. But he has set back Iran's capacity to use its navy, its missiles, its air force, terror networks, and command and control over nuclear. He has set it back more than every president combined. All four of his predecessors, all of whom saw this as a massive problem. You can say he did it without Congress's permission, illegal. You can say without notification or permission, authorization. You can say he assassinated foreign leaders and he's ruined the moral integrity of the United States. You can criticize this 100 ways to Sunday, and we'll talk about this tonight and going forward. But if the metric of success, and you can't say he did it for politics, and you certainly can't say he did it to distract from Epstein and be accurate. But if the metric of success, which was the metric he intended, was to do as much as possible to degrade Iran's capabilities, again, naval, missile, nuclear, command and control, terror. If the metric of success was to degrade them as much as possible with as little cost and blood and treasure as possible, if he stopped today, and he's not stopping today, but if he stopped today, he would have succeeded more than every president combined. It's just a fact. And believe me, that was his intention. And when he saw what was happening to oil, now I don't know why they weren't more prepared on oil. I can't explain it. But if the danger was the markets were down, price of gas was up. If the danger was the Iranians were able to use drones to intimidate people from using the Strait of Hormuz, he didn't do anything but said some more stuff. That's all he's done so far, ladies and gentlemen. He said some more stuff. But by saying some more stuff, he's now got that the stock market is up for the day. The price of gas is down. Okay? Now, he continues to look for a rationale to continue. He continues to look for a rationale to defend this for history because he launched a war of choice by some measures. But it's not a war of choice if Iran was a threat to the world, which it was for decades. And it's certainly not a war for choice if you believe, as Steve Witkoff and others have claimed, that Iran was about to develop a nuclear weapon and use it against Israel. Here's the president from moments ago on that.
Epic Fury, that's a great name, isn't it? Epic Fury. That's even better than Midnight Hammer, which was pretty good too, right? That was where we knocked out their nuclear potential. That was a big day because if we didn't do that, they would have had a nuclear weapon within 2 weeks.
Within 2 weeks. Widely disputed by the New York Times reporting, by the Wall Street Journal, by others, but that's the president's claim. In a moment, we have two great guests here. Elizabeth Pipko, Chris Hahn will come, and they'll talk and tell us what they think about my theory that this was all obvious that the president was going to be able to do this and did do it. And they'll both weigh in on what they think about the mission so far and what might happen going forward. And then we'll talk a little bit more about stuff for later on. There's some other stories we may get to, but we'll probably spend most of the time on Iran. And of course, as we do here on this platform, singularly, uniquely, unusually, compellingly, continuously, regularly, we'll take your questions. So if you're here on the platform and you want to be in on the conversation, please raise your hand. If you're watching on X or on YouTube, don't put smack in the chat. Just don't. Peace, love, and understanding, dudes, ladies. Just there's no reason on this platform. There's so many places where you can put smack, so many. There's so many places where you can fail to extend the presumption of grace to all. Just don't make this the place where you business as usual. Thank you for your attention to that matter. Couple sponsors, and then to our guests. Thank you. Stand by. Right now, you can get 20% off everything on the Cozy Earth website. Go to cozyearth.com. Use the promo code. Let's see what the promo code is. I should know it. Two-way. Comfort. Morning, noon, and night. You wake up in the morning in your Cozy Earth sheets and your bubble cuddle blanket. It's so warm here today. I'm not going to use the bubble cuddle blanket. I'll be honest, but when it gets cold again, I'll be taking it back out. Go to the bathroom, take a shower, dry yourself in the incredibly soft towels, and then get dressed. Put on the best pants alive around. I wore my pants. I've never told you this about the pants. The pockets make you feel like Mary Poppins. You can put pretty much everything in there, maybe even a giant tree. But right now you get everything, all the great stuff they make. CozyEarth.com, promo code two-way. Every day, every minute of your day, you can start with something great. Socks design to support step-by-step, the whole thing. Comforters, socks, bubble cuddle blanket, Lux bath towels, all available to you now. CozyEarth.com, promo code two-way, 20% off. Also, ladies and gentlemen, I mentioned giant trees. I did that for a reason. You can also get 20% off fastgrowingtrees.com, everything on the site. This is unusual. You've all bought sheets and towels and pants through the mail. Most of you have bought one of most things. What most of you have never bought through the mail is a giant tree or a small tree. The folks at fastgrowingtrees.com will sell you a tree online. They'll help you pick the right stuff for whether you want it inside or outside, how many you want, climate, what kind of what kind of look you want. They'll help you with all that, and the help is like better than most nurseries I've ever been to. And then they'll just mail it to you, and it's a thrill of a lifetime. Giant box shows up at your house, got a tree inside. Open it up. They guarantee you that it's going to be healthy. 2 million happy customers already, all with the Alive and Thrive guarantee. Promises your plant or tree will arrive happy and healthy. You don't need a green thumb. You just need to be able to open the box and stand it up and maybe replant it if you want it outside. This is a great gift to send someone you love a tree. They'll always remember that. Go to fastgrowingtrees.com, promo code two-way for 20% off. You will enjoy your trees, whether it's a gift or you use it yourself. All right, ladies and gentlemen, our guests are here, and we'll be continuing to monitor the president and what he has to say. Chris Hahn, welcome back. Thank you for being on Two-Way.
Great to be here.
Remind everybody who may not remember how you got involved in the great American pastime of politics and government and talking on TV.
Well, I've been involved with politics since I was a teenager. That was a long time ago now, as you might be able to tell. Worked for Senator Chuck Schumer. Worked as a chief deputy county executive for Tom Suozzi, who's now a congressman here from New York. And I have been a Fox News contributor. I've been a News Nation contributor. I've been a Politico essayist. I've done other writing and television appearances. I've been on CNN, MSNBC, you name it.
Yeah,
international TV.
Yeah,
I've been talking politics a long time.
Yes, sir. Chris, along with all that, do you happen to be a parent?
I am a parent. I have two daughters.
Yeah. So Elizabeth just became a parent for the first time.
Congratulations.
You got any parenting advice that Elizabeth can glom onto?
You know what? Be able to say no. It's the hardest thing in the world to do, but I wish I did it more.
Yeah. That's a good advice. Elizabeth, welcome in. How's parenthood going?
Not bad, not bad. I don't think I have to say no just yet at 4 weeks, but probably pretty soon.
Yeah. All right. Thank you both. Elizabeth been here a ton. You all know she worked with President Trump, and she's a Republican strategist and just an incredibly well-trained ear and eye and mind to connect, to observe everything and explain it. So thank you both for being here. I'd love for you two to just talk amongst yourselves about the main topic I raised, which is the president knew full well that he could say he was ending the war and bring the markets back up. Doesn't mean he has to end the war, but it allows him to get the markets back up, to take that pressure off, and to continue to just monitor things day to day. So Elizabeth, you know him well. Are you at all surprised by what he did today with his remarks about how this war could end up being over pretty soon?
No, not surprised at all. I think you summed it up pretty well in your intro as well. He's a different kind of politician. He can be fluid with his statements. I think because he's so transparent, people like it. I don't think the average person can do it, as I've tried to tell everyone. There's a lot that Donald Trump can get away with that most of us cannot. Whether you support him or not, I think most would agree with that. I'm not surprised at all. I think most people were cautiously optimistic with his statement today, whether it was about the markets or not. Most people want the war to be over as soon as possible. I think he's happy to make people happy, and to keep updating us on what he says has been a very, very incredibly successful mission thus far. And we can only hope, obviously, continues in that direction and ends, like he said, as soon as possible.
Chris, thoughts on the macro thesis, then we'll break down a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, he has one guardrail, and that is the market, right? When he sees the market going out of control, he knows he has to go out and do something about it, at least verbally. And he knows now very well that his words will move markets. So he saw what was going on in the market the last couple of days, didn't like it, but particularly the cost of gas, which is a major contributor to which party will remain in power in November. And he said, I got to do something about it. He went out there and did it today. Now, whether or not that means he will end the war as he suggested he will remains to be seen. And by the way, he's not the only one who gets a vote in that. The Iranians get a vote in that too, as do the Israelis, and maybe even some of the other neighbors that he attacked, that the Iranians chose to attack. Once you unleash war on the world, which the president, along with Benjamin Netanyahu and the Israelis, did, you don't know what's going to happen next. It's a very unpredictable thing. So I worked in the U.S. Senate during the second Iraqi war. It was a very difficult time, and nobody thought, George W. Bush thought it was over after 6 weeks, and it wasn't over for 20 years.
Yeah. I've been fascinated from the beginning. I have so many dimensions to this, so this is not my only area of interest, but I've been fascinated by the Democratic Party, with a few exceptions, saying the president was making a huge mistake. It was going to cost too much. It was going to be a quagmire. There's no exit plan. It's going to raise the price of gas. And I'm not predicting that none of those things will happen, but the president could leave, in a couple days. And again, it'd be hard for me to say that it was a quagmire. It didn't cost nothing. But
it cost lives.
It cost lives, and it cost money,
billions of dollars.
It didn't cost nothing, but Chris, every loss of life is unspeakable. So
Yeah.
I don't want to put a price tag on that. But when you go to war, when you try to achieve American objectives, in this case with an ally Israel, that involves using the military, people are going to die. That the president said that. It's sad, but it's true. If people die in training. It's just when you use the military, people die. So take that off the table, even though it's unspeakably horrible.
How could you take that? Hold on a second.
Because
how could
Chris,
you take
people are going to
that
die
off the table,
because
Mark?
people are,
That
Steve,
is
Chris,
that is
Chris,
not
Chris.
something you take off the table.
Well,
People died
yeah.
because this guy had a gut feeling that we were going to be attacked, which we were not. And now there are people dead. And now he's going to go to Congress and ask for $50 billion more to continue the war efforts.
Well, maybe not, because the war may end by the weekend. But
Well-
let me just ask my question. If I said to you, let's assume that they're telling the truth about how much destruction they've done to the Iranian capabilities, again, naval, missile, terror, and nuclear in command and control. If I told you that if we stipulate they're telling the truth, they've done substantial damage to those things, and you said, how many billions is that worth? Okay, would you say it's too much? It's not worth the money to do those things, Chris?
I think that the Iranians have been a thorn in our side for generations now. And I do think that it's good that, you could have two competing thoughts in your mind at the same time, Mark. You could have the thought in your mind that it's great that the Ayatollah is dead and that the Iranians' capacity to wreak havoc in the region has been greatly diminished. That is a
Right.
good thing. I have no
Right.
doubt. You could also have the thought in your head that we launched a war of choice without going to Congress, which is what the founders intended, because it's supposed to be a thought out process,
Right.
because Americans died, Iranians died, Israelis
Right.
died,
Let-
Kuwaitis, others died around the region
Right. But let me
because of this being
okay.
launched.
But Elizabeth, I'll take this to you. This one, I'm trying to understand the Democratic Party's mindset around this. Let's say you didn't have to rely on Donald Trump say so, and Marco Rubio say so, and Pete Hegseth say so. The leadership is eliminated. You've taken out their Navy completely. You've taken out their missile capacity dramatically. You've taken out their Air Force. I don't understand. The Democratic Party would say, we don't want those things because you didn't get authorization from Congress, leaving aside the, and again, I don't minimize
because
that.
we're in democracy, just for the record.
Well, I agree.
We have a
but
constitution
I agree,
that you've read, I'm sure.
Chris, I agree, but
Right.
presidents of both parties have decided the War Powers Act is meaningless. So Donald Trump's not the first person.
And again, I hate my party for doing it
Yeah,
too.
so,
I hate it.
So if you just, again, you didn't like when I took off the table loss of life. It was a rhetorical thing. I hope I made clear why I did it. Same thing, Elizabeth, with taking off the table the War Powers Act, because presidents don't give a rip about the War Powers Act. So if you say, how are we ever going to deal with Iran? I don't understand the Democratic Party's position. And I know you're not a Democrat, but I'll ask it this way. Does that seem like, if this ends the way it might, this is not some far-fetched scenario where the president, the blood and treasure and alliance with Israel has seriously removed Iran, at least for now, as the threat it was. Will the Democratic Party pay up? How big a price would they pay politically if this works out well for almost entirely opposing this?
It would have to work out very, very well. I disagree with Chris, I'm sure, on lots of issues, but I do think the loss of life is going to follow Donald Trump until November, unless this works out brilliantly well. I really do think so. I think the sentiment, at least that I hear from young Republicans that I talk to daily, is they are sick of war. I completely understand why we're at war right now, why we let's say it's not a war, let's say why we struck Iran. I completely understand what's going on. I understand why Donald Trump did this. I support him wholeheartedly, but I understand how many young people do feel disenfranchised right now with politics and aren't happy. So I think the Democrats were going to criticize anything Donald Trump did, no matter what. That's just kind of what I've been used to the last 10 years. So I'm looking at it less from what Democrats are saying and more from what truly Republicans are saying, especially those that really, really were super excited to stand in line, no matter how long it took, to get Donald Trump elected in 24. So I don't really think much about what Democrats have to say about Donald Trump because it's almost always negative. Even before he makes a decision on something, they know what their statement is to put out before they're, waiting to see a result. But when it comes to Republicans, though I support Donald Trump, I know a lot of people that are actually trying to see how this ends. I agree with you that he's already done a lot more than his predecessors, and that's incredible. But it has to go very well for this to really help him in November and not hurt him.
Well said. Chris, you worked, as you said, for Senator Schumer. He's been one of the most hawkish Democrats, really one of the most hawkish people in either party about the dangers of the Iran threat to the United States and to Israel and to the region. If President Trump called you and said, Chris, I know there's a lot of raw feelings about my not going to Congress, but going forward on this operation, I really want Senator Schumer's support. I really want him to approve of politically and rhetorically what I'm doing. What would you advise the President Trump to say to Senator Schumer to see if he could win him over? To say he wants daily public statements of thank you, President Trump and the military for neutering the Iran capabilities that have been such a threat.
Well, look, first thing I would say is make your case before you act, which is what every president has done, even when they have ignored the War Powers Act. And you're correct. Every president has since Vietnam.
Yeah.
So it is a problem in this country that presidents just ignore the Constitution, and it's something I'm upset about. The one thing that I actually admired about Donald Trump in his first term and during his campaign was his pledge not to have wars, particularly no war with Iran. And the power that Iran has to influence the world is not through its military. They have never been a military power. They have never been a threat militarily to the United States of America. Taking out their military, great. That might be great for the region. But as for an American, what we need to be worried about is their ability to influence terrorists around the world. And we're still waiting to see if this terrorist attack that took place in New York City and in Houston had something to do with the Iranian war. And it may well have had something to do with that. So, what he's done so far is, yes, he's taken out their Navy to what extent they had a Navy. It's not like our Navy. They did not have battleships and aircraft carriers. He's taken out one Ayatollah Khomeini and replaced him with another. Great. So does that mean that the Iranian Revolutionary Guard is now dismantled? It doesn't appear to be that. It appears that they are still calling the shots. The Iranian people are still oppressed. They will still want to wage war against the West, maybe even more so. They replaced it with a leader whose father was killed, whose wife was killed, who lost a child in this attack. I don't know how that's going to bring peace to that region. Even if they are unable to wage war at this point, they will eventually rebuild and come back. And I think that this is and again, I don't wish that. I hope that they don't. I hope that this, that the Iranian people take back their country, but the people in power have the guns, and we have not taken them out.
Here's a quote from the president. Elizabeth, your baby's not listening, right?
No.
Because the president used profanity here. No other president, this is what he said to the House Republicans moments ago. No other president can do some of the shit I'm doing. I don't want to brag, but they said this about a lot of things. No other president can do the shit that I'm doing. Elizabeth, thoughts?
I mean, you and I both kind of said that when you started the show.
Yeah.
In a lot of different ways. People might mean it differently, but it is true that no other president could do the shit that Donald Trump has done, has lived through, has overcome, has campaigned for. I mean, he is, again, people that disagree with him and don't like him will say that most people would not, could not, do not do what Donald Trump does. Yeah. So I'm sure that's true, whether you like him or not.
I think gravity's coming back to him this November. Yeah. And the Republican Party is going to pay the price. He won't pay the price. He doesn't have to stand before the voters ever again. But the Republican Party is going to pay the price for the stuff he's been doing that no other politician has been able to get away with. You're right, 100%. Taking planes from the Qataris, having his son-in-law, run around the world, and his business partners. It's ridiculous. what's been going on since this man has been president in the second term. And the amount of military force he's used and the number of nations he's attacked without having any conversation with Congress at all.
Chris,
But it's coming.
who's your
Accountability is
favorite-
coming for him.
Who's your favorite member of the Trump administration, Chris?
My favorite member of the Trump
Yeah,
administration.
like on the merits, not for entertainment value, but
No,
who do you,
no,
who do
I
you
mean,
respect? Who do you think's doing a great job for America?
I mean, it's hard to point out for anybody doing a great job for the American people. I do have some respect for the agriculture secretary who did try to stand up for farmers after the tariffs were initiated and were harming farmers.
Yeah.
But look,
think
I
Marco-
think
you think
I think
Marco
that the
Rubio's
vast
doing a good
majority
job?
of people look. I happen to know. I've worked with the Secretary of Defense. He's
Yeah.
completely unqualified to be in that
Yeah.
job.
Do you think Marco Rubio is doing a good job?
No, I don't. I think if Marco
Scott
Rubio was,
Bessent?
I think if Marco Rubio was able, the problem with the president right now, Mark, and I think you'll agree with this,
Yeah.
it's not whether or not these people are good at their job or not. The president has no tolerance for people who disagree with the president. This is not a team of rivals where we're going to have a vigorous debate and come to a conclusion. It is do as I say, go along with me.
How do you know that?
Well, Marco Rubio had completely different stances on a lot of this stuff before Marco Rubio was working for Donald Trump. So did J.D. Vance, his vice president. So did his Secretary of Defense.
Well,
And
they
yet
signed
here
it.
we are.
All right. Let's talk about the New York City incident that you guys referenced. I find this case kind of incredible. Here's number 13. There were bomb attacks right here in New York City, Gotham City, and the mayor's behavior about it has surprised some and not others. Here's the headline: Terror pledge. New York City bomb attack suspect launched slew of chilling ISIS-inspired slogans and threats after their arrests. There you see the suspects. Here's some photos that are kind of incredible. Number 14, please. These are from the Southern District of New York, the U.S. Attorney's Office. You see there, if you're listening on the podcast, you just see incredible shocking photos of bomb throwing. Here is the U.S. Attorney for New York talking about Southern District of New York, talking about the two men from Pennsylvania charged with helping ISIS and throwing bombs at the mayor's residence. This is number 15, please.
We charged two individuals today, Balat and Qayumi. They are charged federally with 5 counts. Attempted provision of material support and resources to a designated foreign terrorist organization. Use of a weapon of mass destruction. Transportation of explosive materials. Interstate transportation and receipt of explosives. And unlawful possession of destructive devices. The facts alleged in the complaint are just that, allegations. In our great system of justice, they must be proven, and the defendants have the presumption of innocence. Commissioner Tisch did an exceptional job.
Commissioner Tisch of the New York City Police Commissioner, number 16, talking about these two suspects and their connection to ISIS. Number 16, please.
Defendants have admitted that they acted on Saturday because of ISIS. As Qayumi was being placed into an NYPD vehicle following his arrest, a person in the crowd asked why he had done this. As shown on NYPD body-worn camera footage referenced in the complaint, Qayumi responded with ISIS. And at the precinct, after being advised of his Miranda rights and waiving those rights, Qayumi said in recorded post-arrest statements that he had watched ISIS propaganda on his phone and that his actions that day were partly inspired by ISIS. The complaint also details statements made by Amir Balat after his arrest. En route to the NYPD precinct, Balat made spontaneous statements without being questioned by NYPD officers that were captured on body-worn camera footage. He said, "This isn't a religion that just stands when people talk about the blessed name of the prophet. We take action, as well as, if I didn't do it, someone else will come and do it." And
Okay,
later,
thank you for that.
after
Elizabeth,
waiving his
thoughts
rights,
on
he
this
requested
and the mayor of New York City's behavior so far in dealing with it?
I mean, none of it's really a surprise. I've been more struck, honestly, by the media. I have family and friends that asked me about this, thinking that I was in New York over the weekend, and they asked me as if it was the far right protesters that
Yeah.
showed up with these bombs. They had no
Right.
idea what
Right.
happened. So I'm honestly more struck by that. I don't expect much. I mean, I've made my views on Mamdani very clear on your show and countless others. I didn't expect much, but again, it's more shocking that the media will cover, not for Mamdani or anyone else. They're literally covering for terrorists who want to, show up and inflict massive amounts of damage and harm and death. Thank God, obviously, that they failed. But I'm mostly confused by that. I'm not even going to criticize Mamdani. Everyone knows how I feel about him. But I am confused by how this has been reported and honestly what that means for our society in America when you can't just tell the truth about something so basic like this.
Yeah, it's kind of extraordinary. Chris?
Yeah, look, I mean, first thing that draws my attention to this is ISIS is, no longer running a country, yet they are still causing harm. And I worry about that when we talk about the defeat of, radical Muslims in Iran, because we're going to have a similar situations down the road. But I think Commissioner Tisch has done a great job for New York City. I think she's a great asset for that city. I think it was great for the mayor to keep her on and great for her to stay on. And I do think that the media should have been clearer about what was going on here.
You know what
And
the New York Times referred to those two gentlemen as?
I don't.
Counter protesters.
Yeah, full disclosure, I was in Florida till about 12 hours ago, and I think that's where you are right now, Elizabeth, right?
Yes.
I don't know if that's Fort Lauderdale behind you. I wasn't very far from that. So I tried so hard, last week, Mark, to just disconnect.
Yeah.
And not be wound up in everything that's been going on the last year. I think we all need to do that once in a while,
Yes,
especially during the Trump presidencies where it's just one thing after another. And I don't want to be hateful. I want to try to have a conversation about what's going on in the world and try to be as, look, I have an opinion and I'm a progressive in every sense of the word. I don't like a lot of things Trump does, but I don't want to hate Trump just because he's Trump.
Thank
So, so I took a little bit of a break from him this weekend. So I was following it and not as closely as I normally would.
Got it. We're going to take your questions and comments in just a minute. So if you're here on the platform, want to get in with Elizabeth and Chris, please raise your hand. Just want to cover a few odds and ends here. When Mr. Tallarico became the Democratic nominee for Senate in Texas, I said, you might think he got scrutiny before running for the nomination, but no, he's about to get opposition research dumped on him, and that will demonstrate what's true from his voting record, that he's way more liberal than anyone who's ever been elected in the last 40 years in Texas statewide, where Democrats have not won. And although there are aspects of his bio that might make him an appealing for a statewide candidate in Texas, in the end, his issue positions would be disqualifying, almost certainly, even if he ends up running against Paxton, but certainly if he ends up running against Cornyn. So I don't know how long it would take for these clips to start showing up, but here's one. This is from a few years ago. Just I think was it from 21? Noah, is that right? This is from
23.
23.
May 23.
So this is 3 years ago. This is if you were teaching, if Chris and Elizabeth were teaching a bipartisan candidate school in Texas, and they were doing some play acting with the classes. University of Texas, a public policy class, a campaign school, whatever. And you'll hear the question given to Mr. Tallarico. This is not the answer that either Chris or Elizabeth would have suggested a candidate for statewide office in Texas give. Number 19, please.
Something that you love that's not family or friends.
I love, I'm just saying this because it's on my mind, the trans children who showed up yesterday at the state capitol to advocate for their humanity. They shouldn't have to, but it was an inspiration to watch.
Okay, so I'm not saying anything negative about trans kids, and I can tell he's heartfelt about it. But Chris, if you think someday you may want to run for statewide office in Texas, would that be the recommended answer?
I would have said my golden retriever. That would have been the first thing other than my family, right? Look, it's a hard issue for Democrats, but I don't think that it's going to have the same kind of play as it did a year ago, because I think there's too much other stuff going on. They're going to go after him for that. That's the one thing. Okay. Because I've seen a lot of oppo on him the last week since he's been the nominee, and it's almost all that. And I just don't think that's enough, especially if it's Paxton, where, the oppo is going to be, I mean, Cornyn did a great
Yeah.
job with some oppo ads, which is why
Yeah.
Cornyn got got 1% more than him
Yeah.
when we all thought he was going to lose.
Yeah. Again, we're not here to attack kids, although the kids in question, I'm told, were there to demonstrate against restrictions on sex reassignment treatments for minors. So on that issue, it's an 80-20 issue or so. Elizabeth, is that the question wasn't, do you love children? Do you love all children? The question was, name something or someone you love besides your family and friends. So just talk about that in the context of trying to become the first Democrat in 40 years to get elected statewide in Texas.
Right. And ironically, I think Chris's answer would have literally gotten you elected in Texas. That's what you say. You say you're golden retriever. That's the way to do it in politics. I don't know, honestly, what the goal was here. It could have been to go viral because it works nowadays and you want to get more attention. And he doesn't have a lot of name ID. And he knew that Republicans were going to post this and other clips. So why not have it out there, especially if you think this issue is one you want to talk about on the campaign trail for whatever reason. I don't know, like you said, how many people paid as much attention to him or realized how far left he was because he was in that race with Jasmine Crockett and she was stealing a lot of the national attention and a lot of the conversation. So a lot more is going to be dropped, of course. I've only done, political work for 10 years, but every few years I hear this is the time when Texas is going to flip. It never seems to happen. I would never be able to believe that this is the guy that's going to get that done.
Yeah. Look, the only way Texas is going to flip is if the Latino movement away from Trump keeps going.
Yeah.
And if I saw a poll in Texas where Trump is getting 22% approval among Latinos. If that's a true number, Texas is going to flip.
Yeah.
If that is not a true number, it won't flip.
Yeah.
I think it's easier to flip if Paxton's the Republican, harder if it's Cornyn. And if it is Paxton, they've got a real problem. They could run all the ads with him talking about, transgender children that they want. There's a lot of bad things about Paxton. There are a lot of Republicans in that state that have said a lot of bad things about Paxton. So a lot of that will wind up in the media and in every campaign ad you see.
Yeah. All right. Two more things and then to your questions. First, Anthropic. This is number 20, please. Everybody here knows Secretary of Defense Secretary of the Pentagon, I like to call him, decided that Anthropic could no longer be a vendor for the Pentagon. And now they've come back and said they can't really be a vendor for anybody who does business with Anthropic can't be a vendor. And here's the headline for Wall Street Journal. Anthropic sues U.S. Defense Department Pete Hegseth for targeting the company. AI model developer alleges retaliation for policy disagreement. The Pentagon said that they want to be able to use AI to target Americans potentially, or that they wouldn't rule it out, I guess is really the right way to say it. And that they wanted, Anthropic objected to the Pentagon firing weapons using AI only. Elizabeth, how do you feel about this dispute? Do you think the Pentagon may have done too much to punish the company or not?
I think it's a very, very 2026 question, right? Like no one would ever be having this conversation a few years ago. So it kind of depends how much you're actually following the issue. I think majority of folks would be confused by the headline and not really understand what's going on. If it's an issue you're trying to push, I think it was a great move on the administration's part in general. And by the way, it's Secretary of War. You both got it wrong. In
Pentagon,
general,
I call him Pentagon Chief. The Wall Street Journal headline said Secretary of Defense.
It's Secretary of Defense till Congress changes it, and Congress has not changed it.
It's unofficial. It's a secondary naming.
it's better than a lot of things people have called him, so I'm sure he'll take it.
Oh,
But
trust me.
either way, for
Hang around Fox
Secretary
News, you hear a lot of things people called them.
for Secretary Hegseth, I think it was a great move just because you're trying to steer the conversation in a certain way. Again, if you're not following the topic, no one has any idea what's going on here, and most Americans don't know.
Yeah.
I got a
Chris,
question.
think
Like, did this secretary not see the new Tron movie last year where the AI decide to shoot on their own? I don't know why we would ever want AI to be able to shoot on their own. That to me is a slippery slope.
Yeah.
And the Terminator, whatever else is coming, but it also gives a political commander or a political officer the ability to bypass generals and others to get war powers done. And I wouldn't want that whoever was in power. I wouldn't trust anybody with that.
Yeah.
We want people to be making these decisions, not machines.
Well said. All right, one more thing. One of my current reporting projects is trying to understand how people react to J.D. Vance. Some people I know just love him to death, think he's amazing. And increasingly, I'll say, I'm hearing from people who don't love him, rubs them the wrong way, one way or the other. And some of them are big Republican donors or politicians saying maybe he should be our nominee in 2028, but maybe not. Maybe this should be a more open process. So one of the questions is knowing his heart. I don't know him particularly well. I don't feel I know his heart the way I do some of the other people I've covered. And often in public now, he's, I would say, sarcastic, a little hard-edged. We haven't seen him be emotional very much. Well, here he is emotional today, addressing the firefighters union. Here's J.D. Vance talking about his mom to the firefighters. Number 21, please.
Times I was one of those scared little kids who had to call the firefighters, who had to call the EMTs. You know, my own mother struggled with opioid addiction for a very large chunk of my life. And I remember when she was having a particularly dark moment and she needed some help. I needed some help. Our family needed some help. I picked up the phone, I called 911, and a number of brave, professional, compassionate firefighters from Middletown, Ohio showed up. And they calmed my mom down and they made it possible for us to go on with the rest of our day. They made a kid who was scared to death feel like he had an ally in this world. I will never forget that. I will never forget also when we had to call 911, it wasn't a firefighter, it was an EMT who came and took my mom to the hospital because she had had a very terrible overdose. And I remember holding her hand, hoping to God that she would be okay, that she would wake up. We know a lot of our people have not woken up when they have those opioid overdoses, but by the grace of God, my mom did wake up. And by the way, she's now been clean and sober for north of 11 years. We celebrated her 10-year sobriety. Thank you. We celebrated her 10 years of sobriety in the West Wing of the White House. What an incredible testament to the American dream that a woman I thought would never live to meet my children is now the best grandmother to those children that they could ever ask for, and we celebrated that sobriety in the People's White House. But that moment, the many moments of second chances that we've gotten with my mom, and I love you, Mom, if you're watching this. She probably is. She watches everything. I don't know why, but she does. But Mom, we would not have gotten that second chance were it not for the firefighters all across our country, for the EMT specialists all across our country who make it possible for second chances again and again and again.
So I don't read the chat, but I do glance at it occasionally. I saw at least a couple of you said he's a phony. Elizabeth, do you think he showed his heart there in a way that might allay concerns that some people have that he's a quote unquote phony or not?
I mean, some people are always going to hate because he's J.D. Vance, right? He's Donald Trump's VP. I do know this is an issue that means quite a bit to him. I do not know him like I know the president, but this is something that matters to him. I do not believe anything that he said on that stage was phony. I can only imagine what he went through as a child and what it means to him to be able to give speeches like this about those moments and know how far he and his family have come. So I would never say anything was phony about that topic or any of those memories that he unfortunately has from that time in his life.
Chris, did that seem like appealing sharing to you?
Yeah, look, let me just put my political consultant hat on. That's a guy that can get elected to something, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately for him, for the next 3 years, he has to basically be Trump's attack dog. And I don't think he's very good at that role. I don't think like when Trump, Trump is probably the perfect attacker, right? Because he does it, everybody laughs, but he makes the point and it sticks. I don't feel like J.D. Vance lands a clean punch without looking like he's being forced to land a punch. I don't know if that makes any sense to you, but it just, to me, seems forced. That did not seem forced. That seemed genuine. I don't know if it was or if it wasn't. I did read his book. I did, and it was a moving book, and it was a moving experience, and I think one that a lot of Americans can relate to and connect with. But I don't know that that's going to be enough to make him the Republican nominee, let alone president of the United States in 3 years.
Thank you for that. Well said by both of you. Quick word from a sponsor, then to your questions. Please raise your hand if you want in on the conversation. Whether you've got health insurance or not that covers your prescription drugs, almost everybody's had the experience of getting a bill for a prescription drug that's pretty astoundingly high. Here's an opportunity to use a service that will potentially lower your costs a lot. Super Plus RX. It's a prescription drug medication membership. It's on super.com. Go to super.com/RX to become a member. And you get up to 85% off your prescriptions. 85% off. Again, it's super.com/RX. It's a life hack for prescription prices. You can save up to 85% off. You just pull it up on your phone, your membership, and show it to the pharmacist. You don't have to print anything else. It works at all the major pharmacy chains around the country, more than 74,000. And you don't have to have insurance for this to work. No hidden fees, no surprises. You just search the drug, see the price, and you pay that price. Super Plus Advantage. It is not a one-off coupon. It's part of a membership designed to put money back in your pocket. So if you want to give it a try and save money on prescriptions, go to superrx.com right now to see how much you can save, up to 85% off. All right, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Ken, welcome in. Tell folks who don't know where you are, what's on your mind for Chris and for Elizabeth, and thank you for being part of Two Way.
Thank you. I'm outside of Dayton, Ohio. I am a conservative nightmare in that I am a Ivy League trained professor, academic, but I support Trump. I came in today because I wanted to know the opinions of you and the guests on whether or not, as of today, the U.S. is better off, and whether or not, as of today, Iran is better off. But thankfully, you all answered that question, so I'm going to change it a little bit. Is the ability of Iran to support international terrorism greater or lesser than it was a week ago? And is the ability of Iran to support a nuclear weapons program greater or lesser than it was a week ago, in your opinion? Thank you.
Great question. Elizabeth, do we know?
I don't know how much we know just yet because it's been, 9-10 days. It's the first question you posed is most interesting because obviously if Iran is weaker, you would assume the terrorism around the world might be weaker, but it's technically not, because what we just saw in New York proves that you can be basically obliterated and still inspire people years later with content on the internet, content that is, I mean, if you see our internet every single day, what's on there is terrifying. But there are people that are radicalized every single day by a lot of these materials, a lot of these groups that are being funded, of course, by Iran. But I think in general, the regime is weaker, will continue to hopefully get weaker. I hope that Donald Trump is as successful as could possibly be, but there is always going to be a threat, at least for the foreseeable future, because of those that are consistently radicalized by the ideology of those that were in charge in Iran.
Ken, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I'd be happy to restrict it to Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis. But
Chris, thoughts on whether the U.S. is in a better shape vis-a-vis Iran and Israel?
Well, I mean, look, there's no doubt that Iran is weaker, but their ability to wage terrorism, remains to be seen. Again, you could go into Home Depot and get the parts you need to build those bombs. Yep. These men did, here in New York. I don't think the United States is stronger for this. In fact, I think it's weaker. I think we've weakened our stance around the world since this man has been president because of the way he has treated our allies and not brought them along in these endeavors that he's been going off on. I think that's a problem. I think the United States word needs to mean something around the world, and I think that the president has done a lot to damage that.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you, Ken. If you disagree with what Chris is saying, for instance, please know he speaks for tens of millions of Americans. And he does it articulately. And by the way, he speaks for tens of millions of Americans, not just people on the left. There are a lot of people in MAGA who agree exactly with what Chris is saying. And you can disagree. You shouldn't put smack in the chat, but what a wonderful opportunity for you to hear such an articulate explanation of what tens of millions of your fellow citizens think. You're welcome. Thank you, Chris. All right, Jen, welcome in. Jen lives in Oklahoma. You can tell from her lower third. Jen, unmute. Tell folks what's on your mind for Chris and for Elizabeth, and thank you for being part of Two Way.
There. Well, a lot of sun now that we have daylight savings time. So I find myself with a lot of political exhaustion, and it's on a pendulum, that swings from Donald Trump's antics to the Democrats' absolute ability to see anything good out of the Trump administration. I mean, seriously, if he could invent a time machine and go back and prevent Adolf Hitler from ever being conceived, there would be something wrong with that. So, but I am, let's see, I hear what Chris is saying, concerning the Constitution, and I'm certainly a strong supporter of the Constitution. But at the same time, the Democrats did not have any real problem with Biden and the Constitution when he absolutely ignored his constitutional responsibility to protect our borders. And I think if we do have a lot of terrorism concerns at this moment, which I agree we do, I think it has a great deal to do with the fact that all kinds of people were let in for 4 years, and we have no idea who they really are, what their real purposes were, or where they are now.
Yeah, Jen, let's let Chris respond to that, Jen.
Yeah,
Thank you. Chris, go ahead. Thank
Yeah.
you, Chris.
Well, first, thank you. I'm glad it's a sunny day in Oklahoma. It's a sunny, beautiful day here in New York as well. Look, here's the thing about the Constitution. The president does have the ability and is responsible for immigration. I do think Biden could have done a better job, but he was not ignoring the Constitution. And he did attempt to make a deal with Republicans to have comprehensive immigration reform and border security. That was rejected because Donald Trump wanted the issue for the campaign, and it was an issue he used very well in the campaign, and it got him elected. I think that when it comes to war, the power is very clear. And the reason why, if you read the Federalist Papers, the reason why the founders wanted this power to be with Congress is because they didn't want it to be a gut feeling, which is exactly what Carolyn Leavitt said is why we went to war here. They wanted it to have a vigorous debate where pros and cons were weighed and all of the scenarios were talked about, and that the American people would ultimately be behind because their representatives were there, because it's the American people who have to actually do the fighting and the dying in these conflicts and pay the bills for it. So that is why and again, I don't like it when Democrats do it, and I don't like it when Republicans do it. But what we have here is clearly there was no imminent threat on the United States of America, and we went to war without any consultation to the American people or to the Congress.
Jen, thank you. Elizabeth, would you like to see presidents, this president and other presidents, go to Congress before they initiate military conflict? Would that be your preference?
I think I would love if everybody followed the rules in general and we could go back in time and start over and no one hated each other and no one turned on each other the way that they do and no one weaponized the justice system against their enemies. I would love if a lot of things started over, but here we are. At the same time, I don't really know what intelligence Donald Trump and his administration had that most of us do not. I will never sit here and say that I know for a fact there was or wasn't some kind of imminent threat from Iran. I think the president did what he thought he had to do, and because we are as divided as we are, we're probably going to be 50-50 split on that, just like people were on Obama, and just like they'll probably be with the next guy.
But if you could start things over and not have everybody talk about the recrimination, would you prefer that presidents in general, when it's not an emergency, and this wasn't a day emergency, he could have waited 2 days, would you prefer presidents of both parties seek congressional authorization before taking the country to war? Would that be better?
I mean, it would always be better if we followed every word in the Constitution 100%, although I did hear them say that it was imminently going to be a threat towards Israel, one of our strongest allies. I don't know.
But it's not a threat towards us. And it was imminent because Israel was going to attack. This is a real, this was not good. This was extra constitutional by the president. It's not the first time he's drawn outside the lines, and he's not the only president to draw outside the line. I'm not saying it, but I think that this Congress has been particularly feckless in dealing with it.
Let me ask you both the question. If you were the president of CNN, I think the first N stands for news. And during a war with Iran, the president of the United States was having a news conference. Would you carry it live, Chris?
Yes.
Elizabeth?
Yes.
They're not currently carrying it live.
Shocking.
Let's dip in. Just go ahead and dip into the president's news conference if we could. We won't be able to stay with it for the whole thing, obviously. He's just begun. But let's see what he's talking about if we could.
They're not meant to fight against us.
We continue to target Iran's drone and missile capabilities. Their drones are way down. Their drone manufacturing's been hit starting today. We know all of the places they manufacture the drones, and they're being hit one after another. Their missile capability is down to about 10%, maybe less. We're also hitting where they make missiles and where they deliver missiles. We've struck over 5,000 targets to date, some of them very major targets, and we've left some of the most important targets for later in case we need to do it.
I
If
have
we
to
hit
say, of
them,
all
it's
the
gonna
events
take
of
many
President
years
Trump
for
that
them to
CNN
be
has not
rebuilt.
taken, this may be the most shocking
Having
to me.
do with
I think they're waiting for him to
electricity
take
production
questions
and
because
many
a
other
lot of what he
things,
said, he
so
said all day
we're
today.
not looking to do that if
Still.
we don't have to.
Yeah.
Still.
But they're the kind of things that are very easy to hit, but very devastating if they are hit. We are waiting to see
They're
what
ta- they're
happens
taking it now.
before we hit them. We could take
MS
them all
Now
out in
is
one
taking
day,
it now too.
but it's all resulting in a 90% decline in various things, but in particular, Iranian missile launchers and 83% drop in drone launchers. As you know, the drone launchers are pretty well shot, but we're at over 90% decline in the Iranian missile launchers, which is very hard to reproduce and very hard to get. And usually what we were able to do through great equipment, a lot of smart people, as soon as they sent a missile up from a launcher, we were able to knock out that launcher within a period of 5 minutes or less, accurately, right on the noggin. So now we have low-cost interceptors effectively combating Iranian drones, and our B-2 bombers recently dropped dozens of 2,000-pound bombs to destroy missile launchers all over Iran and buried deep under Iranian soil in many cases. The soil was no match. And we're also annihilating the manufacturing base that the regime uses to build drones and missiles at a rate that nobody thought was possible. We're knocking them out. We know where they all are. We're knocking them out very quickly. We're ahead of our initial timeline by a lot. I would say that we probably would not have thought after a month we'd be here. In addition to the fact that we've taken out the leadership twice and maybe 3 times. And we, as you know, we want to be involved. We don't want another president that maybe wouldn't be willing to do what I'm willing to do for the good of the world, for the good of our nation, to be stuck with the situation in 5 years or 10 years from now. So we think they should put a president in, or the head of the country in, that's going to be able to do something peacefully for a change. They've been doing this for 47 years, killing people for 47 years, whether it's the barracks or even the SS Cole where they were involved very strongly. They always denied it. But where they were very strongly involved in all of the people that died through the roadside bombs, died and are right now walking around with no legs, no arms, a face that's been so badly damaged. The Iranian regime has been attacking Americans and spreading terror for 47 years. And despite these countless opportunities to renounce their nuclear ambitions, which they had just a short while ago, they told Mr. Witkoff, who is standing right over here, they said, they actually said, we want to keep building. Essentially, in a real nutshell, we want to continue to build nuclear weapons. If we didn't knock out Midnight Hammer, if we didn't knock out their Iranian potential, if we didn't do that with Midnight Hammer, they would have had a nuclear weapon. They would have used it long before now. And at a minimum, Israel would have been annihilated.
Okay.
It was very lucky
We're
that we
running
had
up
the
against
courage to
clock.
do that.
Elizabeth, based on the president's tone there and the other things he said today, is your sense that the war is winding down, not winding down, or too soon to say?
I mean, I think it's too soon to say, but my sense is he has really, really decided this has to be done in the coming weeks, hopefully coming days. But he, obviously, like you said, he changes his mind with what he wants to put out there every day. He gets away with it. Other people don't. I think people actually appreciate it quite a bit, but he wants this to end. And I think, again, despite what people think, he takes that loss of life very, very, very seriously. He wants this to come to an end.
Chris, thoughts?
I think he's looking at the markets. I think he's looking at his poll numbers. He's looking at how the American people feel about this war, and he would like it to come to an end. But as I said before, once you unleash war, it is not just your decision to put it back in that bottle.
Yeah.
And I don't know if the president understands that yet, but he's going to learn.
Okay. Chris Hahn and Elizabeth Pipko, thank you both. Very grateful to you both for making time and spending the hour with us. Thank you all
Thank
for
you.
watching. 7
for having
o'clock
me.
tonight, Lifelong with Ethan Suplee's here. And Ethan's guest, Astrid Naranjo. And tomorrow morning meeting, 9 a.m. Eastern time, Larry O'Connor and Kevin will be here with us. Look forward to that. See you at 9 a.m. Again, thanks to Chris and Elizabeth, and thanks to all of you for being part of Two Way. Have a good night.